This month I'm answering your questions from folks who watch the videos and who read the blogs. And this week's question, like last week, comes from Allie. Allie wrote, how do you convince others that the decision they think you made about a huge life-changing event being completely out of left field is actually rational, thought through, and okay? Is it their insecurities, or is it that you're completely barking mad? Hey, I'm Mark. Welcome back to things that I've learned from the science of decision making that are just broadly useful in everyday life. And please, as always, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm know to send this video out to more people. Okay, I've included last week's video as a linked video right here, but as I said last week, Allie's question is actually two questions in one. What do you do about naysayers, which is what we talked about last week, and then how do you make a decision with other people? In other words, if the naysayers aren't just stakeholders, they are co-deciders in the decision, how do you make a joint decision? In this week's blog post, I go through a quick 6-step process for how you join your goals with the goals of somebody else. But I want to devote this video to another concept in the science of decision making. It's called Arrow's impossibility theorem. It's named after the economist Kenneth Arrow, who proposed it in the 1950s and then won in the 1970s a Nobel Prize for this theorem. Arrow's impossibility theorem, as you can guess from the name, basically says that it is impossible to make a group decision. I kid you not, that's literally what he won his Nobel Prize for. A reasonable setup for a group decision requires 4 things. First, it requires something that Arrow calls non-dictatorship. If we want to make a group decision, then one person can't make the decision. The group has to make a decision. There is no one dictator, no one vote that outweighs all the other votes. The second is something called Pareto efficiency. What Pareto efficiency means is if all of us in the group prefer option A, then option A should win. A pretty basic assumption. The third thing that a group decision requires is something called independence of irrelevant alternatives. What that means is if, as a group, we're trying to decide between chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream, those are the only options available to us, then the fact that banana ice cream exists or the fact that flourless chocolate cake exists is irrelevant and therefore should not have an impact on our decision between chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla ice cream. And the fourth is something called unrestricted domain. Basically what that means is that we have to make a decision. We can't just throw up our hands and say it's impossible to choose. So what Arrow proved mathematically is that in a system in which irrelevant alternatives don't matter, in which there isn't a dictator, in which the system has to make a decision, and in which if all of us prefer chocolate ice cream, then we're buying chocolate ice cream, then if there's more than 2 options for us to choose between, you mathematically cannot make a decision. I'm telling you all this not to depress you, but to tell you that group decisions are always an imperfect science. So the steps that I go through in the blog post to elicit a group decision are not a guarantee of the perfect group decision. What they are a guarantee of is transparency in how the group makes the decision. A transparency in group decision making makes it so much less likely that somebody's going to look at your decision and be like, wow, that's completely barking mad. You can find the blog post on my website, markschreim.com/blog, or on my Substack, solvingforwhy.substack.com. And as always, remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Leave a comment below with one of your questions, and I'll see you next week.